Welcome to Coffee with Kay, where we're going to make sure the coffee is always served strong, but it's also going to come with a side of truth, and that's truth with a capital T. The truth of God, that is. I'm here to equip and encourage you, Saint. Yep, that's right, you. And if you're not familiar with the sainthood, I want to teach you what it is, and I want to invite you to the family. So, let's get right into it.
Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race for you. Monday, happy days. Tuesday, happy days. Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, happy days.
My husband has a big family. He has six siblings. He's one of seven. And so, like, his parents would do something usually in the summers to get all their kids together so they could have time with all their kids and their spouses. And we were the first ones to get married out of all the siblings. So for the first couple years, I was the first in-law to get introduced to family trips. They didn't do them a ton growing up. They did them more as they got older. Some places that we went to, let me think. I remember we went when I was pregnant to Hot Springs, Arkansas. And we stayed at like a lake house, and that was really cool. I had never been, and I never really had an interest in going to Arkansas because, like, in my head, there's nothing in Arkansas. But Arkansas is beautiful. It is a very naturally gorgeous place. And I remember we went kayaking, and I don't remember what else we did. We were usually only there for like 3 or 4 days, nothing crazy. So just kind of a time to relax and like catch up with the in-laws. And so another family trip we went on, I think this was 2018. Yes, because we only had one kid then. We went to Seattle, Washington. One of my husband's siblings lived up there, and they were getting married up there. And so the family trip ended up being a family contribution for us to get up to Seattle, because a lot of us were either like young, late teenagers, mid-20s, late 20s, and we did not have bankroll like that. So I remember he matched our airplane contribution and then covered most of lodging. We stayed at like an Embassy Suites, I think, because he had like points there because my father-in-law is a business guy. And that trip was so fun. And so the first half of it was spent like helping getting ready for the wedding and doing like little wedding traditions that our like my husband's family has. One of them is that the grandmothers will take the bride and her bridal party, and usually any sisters and the mother-in-law and the other moms to a bridal tea. And so I think I got to go to that bridal tea, and it was at this really cute cafe in Seattle. And then after the wedding, they got married. Oh my goodness, what is the mountain's name? Rainier, right? Mount Rainier. Beautiful. Jaw-dropping. I have pictures of that trip on my Instagram. Definitely scroll back, and I'll try and put some in my stories too, so you guys can like see the places that I'm talking about in this episode, because they're just jaw-droppingly gorgeous. So that was so fun. And then the other half of the trip, we got to do some traveling around Washington. I remember we went to Langley, and I will always remember that because, you know, my husband and I like joked like, we would love to retire here, this little island. You take a ferry to it, and everybody was so nice. And I felt like in the rest of Seattle, people were so busted and not nice. And it was really clean there, and there were like no homeless people everywhere. And it was just so cute. It was gorgeous. So I remember we went to Langley. I remember we went to like the market, Pike's Market. I'm sorry, I can't remember all the places that it's called, and got to go see different cafes and restaurants. And the sister that was getting married, they had lived there for a while, so they knew all the hot and poppin' places to visit, or like the places that were just really homey and like hole-in-the-wall places that you just had to try. That was so fun. I've always wanted to go back to Seattle, but the political climate up there is just a hot mess. I have so many friends from Seattle who've moved down here, and just the stuff that they come back saying, 1, it's not the same. 2, a lot of the stuff closed down after COVID. And 3, it's just a hot mess express up there, and it's not really safe. So that's so unfortunate because it's so beautiful. So I always pray for Seattle just for selfish reasons. and beyond selfish reasons, but because I really want to go back. So get it together, Washington and Oregon, so I can go back and spend my money there. Don't you want my money? Don't you want me to come shop and help your economy? No? Okay, never mind. Then keep acting crazy. 2018, also, I got to go to San Diego for another wedding for a friend from high school. I definitely talked about this trip a little bit on my financial takeaways episode, because this was the last trip we took before we started getting out of debt. I did take a credit card on this trip. It was a super budget trip. I remember I took my best friend because she and her husband did Financial Peace, and so I knew that they had the money to go, and they were like money conscious, whereas most of my friends would be like, I can't afford that. It was like a $300 trip to San Diego. I miss how affordable traveling used to be. I really do. It's just, especially since COVID, it's more of a luxury now, I feel like. And so I remember we flew Spirit. My son was like 9 months old at the time. Let me say, anytime I traveled in my 20s, I usually had 1 or 2 babies with me. I always took my kids, and now that's like, I'll get to that in a second, but I always take my kids. I never let my kids be a reason that I didn't travel, especially when they were babies. And so that trip was really fun. So I took my friend because I was like, I'm kind of afraid to travel by myself across the country to San Diego with a baby. That's crazy. And so I remember we flew Spirit, and like Spirit is so cheap, but it's whatever. It got us there. And then we stayed in like a little carriage house in San Diego. So it's like a little apartment. And then we rented a little car. At the time, there had been this company, and it was like you could rent baby gear. And I know they have different ones now, but this one doesn't exist anymore, which was so cool. I've always wanted to start a company like this because the concept is amazing. So people could rent out their baby gear, like you rent a car on Turo. They could rent out their baby gear on this website and like drop it off, pick it up to people who needed baby gear. So they had like pack and plays and car seats and jumpers and walkers, stuff like that. And so I was able to get a car seat. I think maybe I brought my son's car seat. I really don't remember, but I definitely had a pack and play delivered to the carriage house at this Airbnb. So like the lady delivered baby stuff to me, and it was like, 20, 30, $40. And then she picked it up before we left. Great. So cool. So cool. And I know there's stuff that exists out there like that. I'm going to try and find it for you guys and put it in the show notes, because that is like the ultimate travel hack. And if I can find some, I definitely want to see if I can become an affiliate for them, because I will always be behind that, especially now that I've got almost 4 kids. Traveling with car seats is the bane of our existence. We will do whatever we can to not have to travel with car seats. I'm going to get to that in a second. That trip was really fun. I remember we went to like a Japanese gardens, and we did not go to the zoo. I remember we went to a park in downtown San Diego by the zoo. We had some really good restaurants. We went to the wedding. We went to La Jolla. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty in La Jolla. I remember I like looked up blogs about like the best places to go and experience in San Diego, and it was a beautiful trip. Haven't been back to San Diego again since COVID, and because it's crazy over there, and I just like, I can't imagine anything more stressful than traveling with my kids to San Diego, California, and I just have this like heart-dropping feeling that not everybody would come back. So we're just not going there. Yeah, so we're just not going there. So that's 2018. 2019. Okay, I'm pregnant that year. I remember we took a family trip with my husband's family to Waco that year. I remember having pictures because I had a big old belly, and it was summer. It was close to summer, and it was hot. And there's a picture of my son eating this giant watermelon because he used to love watermelon when he was a toddler. And we went to Magnolia, and that was really fun. Okay, let's see. I think this is where things start to get fuzzy, because the next year was COVID, and that was the year that we moved to East Texas from North Texas. So I remember for sure, I think that's when we started going to Connecticut in the fall, because I realized, we went to Connecticut in the spring too. Right before or right after we went to Waco, Texas. We went to Connecticut in the spring for Easter. That's what it was. I was pregnant, and I hadn't had Easter with my dad and my dad's family probably since I had been a teenager. And so we got to go up there for Easter, and that was a really sweet time, and it was really beautiful. And that's when like all the spring stuff was starting to blossom up on the East Coast. And I got to do my maternity pictures up there, and that was so pretty. Yeah, and then either before or after we went to Waco. And then for the first time, we went to Connecticut 2 times in a year. So we had my daughter, and when she was about 4 months old, maybe 5 months old, we took her to Connecticut so my dad could meet her. So we wouldn't have to wait like a whole nother year because she would have been close to 1 year old by then. And we really try to bring our babies up to Connecticut before their first birthday so my dad can meet them while they're still infants. And so we took her up there, and that's when we started going to Connecticut in the fall. And I was like, why don't we always do this? Because I love it. Like going in February when it's just kind of bleak and dreary, or like November again when it's bleak and dreary. It's just not fun. It's the most affordable times to go is like February and November because it's the off season, like it's cold and snowing. It's not easy. Like nobody wants to go up to the East Coast in those times. That's when we would go because we could afford it. And I was finally like, I need to see some fall trees. I need to see some fall trees right now. And that was a really sweet trip. And I remember that trip to Connecticut, we went back to my old high school, and went to go to a swim meet. And like my old swim coach was still there. And that was, I think it was their senior night too. And so that was really sweet. And it brought back all the feels and all the memories. And it was just so cool. It was such a good time. And then bear with me, I don't believe we went anywhere else because that was the year that we were seriously working to get out of debt. And so we were supposed to go on a cruise. I canceled that cruise. I think that was the year before. Asked my husband to cancel that cruise. And so we stopped traveling beyond seeing my family for a couple days in Connecticut and my husband's family trips. We did not do any other traveling. I think the year after that was COVID year. And so pretty much nobody was traveling. And then the next time I remember doing anything was that attempted camping trip. I'm pretty sure my daughter was 1 or 2. So this had to be 2020 actually, because I was not pregnant. And we tried to go camping because we were broke. And so I remember we borrowed our friend's tent, and we found this place. It's called Outdoorsy. I'm going to definitely try and find a link to put in the show notes. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. So also another really cool travel hack. It's like Outdoorsy, and there's one other website. Can't think what it's called at the moment, but I'm going to find it and put them in the show notes for you guys and try to get an affiliate code for y'all. But people will rent out their land. So you can go camping, or you can boondock, or you can park your RV. And so some of them will say, I have RV hookups here. So you can have electric and septic, or electric and water, no septic, whatever. And then some of it is just pure land. So it's like you can come pitch your tent, or if you have like the ability to boondock, which is like a van or an RV that doesn't need, that has like solar and can run off the grid, then you can boondock there. And so that was really cool. And it was like $16 a night. So we borrowed a camper, or borrowed a tent. I got like a Dutch oven from Walmart, and we went camping, and it was the worst camping experience ever. So that was such a funny story because the first place we found, it was supposed to be this land kind of by a lake. It looked cute from the pictures, right? We get to this place, and it's this house that literally, like, we were pretty sure it was a meth house, and we called the cops, and we said, like, somebody needs to come check this place out because this is not right. And so we, like, reported it to the website, and they gave us our money back. But this house was kind of like up on a hill. This guy had no electricity. And I remember like my husband went to go knock on the door because we couldn't get back to the place where you're supposed to camp. And it was like super trashy and overgrown. And like we kind of got down there, and it was like just super dangerous. There's glass and beer bottles everywhere, and it's just disgusting. So we hightailed it back out. And like my husband, knocks on the door, and this guy answers, and he said the house like had like no floors. The floors were missing, and there was like holes in the floors, and the guy had like a construction lamp like hanging, and like that was his electricity, and he looked like cracked out. And we're like, this guy might genuinely be a serial killer. Like, what the heck? And this place had reviews, and then he wanted us to pay off. He wanted us to cancel our reservation and then pay offline, so that, because he didn't have access to a bank, because he didn't have an ID, because of this, because of that. And then there's like, well, there's no record we were ever here, and you seem like a psycho killer, so absolutely not. And I was like, get the hell out of here. Get me away from this place. This is so scary. It was so creepy. And then at the last minute, like, we found another property from this site, or maybe it was the other site, but it was a wedding venue. And so it was this sweet old guy who ran this wedding venue. It was a legitimate place. There's even a wedding going on when we got there. So, like, one half of the place was reserved for the wedding, and then the other half was just like this open field, and that's where we camped. And that's when I said, we're never going camping again. I'm not doing this. This is crazy. And so that must have been 2020. 2021, that's the year I had my third baby. And if we traveled, it must have just been a family trip. And if it was a family trip, I don't even remember where we went. Don't even know. And then, 2022, we would have had said baby. And so I remember we went to Connecticut that year with him. And we go to Connecticut, we just do all the fall things, pumpkin patches and whatnot. I know there's some other trips in there that I'm totally missing and I can't think of because mom brain. But I really cannot recollect what we might have done that year. Or where we would have gone. Oh, I remember we went to Galveston around either right before or right after going to Connecticut. My mom and my brother and I had like a little family trip. We went to Galveston, and that was a cool time. It's off season down there too. There's an island, so it's just the locals there. But it's such a vibe, and it's still really cute down there. So I remember we did that in 2022. Gosh, I'm crazy. So that was the year that we went on the trip of all trips so far that really re-sparked our love for traveling. So we had close friends, truthfully, like two of our best friends from college, and I'll get to share more about this friendship another time in another episode. It's going to be such a good episode. We've been waiting to do this for years, but they were going to Spanish Wells, Bahamas, and they were like, you guys should come. They were supposed to be going for like 6 weeks, and we're like, I don't know if we could swing that, but okay. So we went for like 4.5, 5 weeks. At the very last minute, our friends felt called to move. So they canceled the trip, but we could not cancel the trip. So we still went. They had planned this trip. They had picked the place. They invited us on it. So we ended up having to like research everything for ourselves pretty much because like we kind of split up the responsibilities. But yeah, we went and lived in Spanish Wells, Bahamas for about 5 weeks. And we still talk about it to this day. Our oldest would have been 5 at the time. Our youngest would have been 1. Yeah, he would have been 1. It was the coolest experience. The way our company was structured, like we have a project manager who does a lot of our walkthroughs. We have a construction company and does like a lot of client face-to-face interactions, where my husband's role now, where he used to be the only handyman, the project manager, the everything, he's finally kind of more in the back running the business. And so we had the opportunity to work remotely to go on this trip. And we pretty much went with the perspective that like we're going to be living there. Like we're not going on a 5-week vacation. We can't afford that. We still have to work. I wasn't working at the time anymore. I was still podcasting. So I do have a couple podcast episodes that I recorded in the Bahamas. That was season 3. It was so cool. So Spanish Wells is like a 2-mile long island in the Bahamas. The people who founded Spanish Wells were from like Bermuda originally. They were Europeans that were fleeing Bermuda from religious persecution in the 1600s, and they shipwrecked on Spanish Wells, and they stayed there. And so the people there are white people with Bohemian accents who've like people have moved around and like met people from the States and whatever. So it's not like all inbred, right? But I mean, people can literally trace their lineage back to the 1600s, the original settlers, and like their graves. It was so cool, and that really it really inspired our family to come back to the States and live a completely different life, where we were going to cut out busyness as much as we could, the hustle, the grind, because there, I mean, life was so chill, and there were zero distractions. There was like three restaurants on the whole island. Well, the locals had cars, but you usually had a golf cart. And so our friends were the ones who had the golf cart originally, and so we didn't have a huge budget for a golf cart. So we rented one for like maybe a week or two, but we would split it up in between the 5 weeks we were there, and we would try and rent it on the days that we needed to go get groceries, or like that we knew we wanted to go to the other side of the island where we couldn't walk. But we pretty much walked everywhere. The Airbnb we were living at was 5 minutes away from the grocery store. So I had our stroller, and I had like a bag and a box. And so I bought what I could that could fit in the bag and the box so I can get it back to the Airbnb. The beach was 5 minutes away. We ended up going to the church there, and that was 5 minutes away. And we made friends there. And so they invited us to like cookouts or birthday parties. And like then we saw them at church and went to the beach every day. If it wasn't raining, there was like a brief stint where there was a lot of rain on the island for a couple days, but we were there for Christmas and we were there for New Year's, which was also a first that we had never been away from family for Christmas. But I loved it because once I started having kids, I could not stand the hustle and bustle of the holiday rush. It just sucked the joy out of the holidays for me. I could not stand it. And so we were like, we won't be here. Sorry. Either, celebrate without us, or if you do something in November or January, like we can do that. And so it's been really nice because both of our families have started doing stuff between October, November, and January, which is a little excessive, but I really don't care because it leaves December wide open to actually enjoy the festivities with my family and not be bouncing from party to party and house to house because it is so exhausting. And by the time Christmas comes, I don't even want to do Christmas anymore. I'm ready to take it down. So we had Christmas in the Bahamas, and I packed a couple gifts for the kids in our luggage, and I brought our Advent calendar with us. And so we did Advent in the Bahamas, and there was little gifts in there, but we were just very focused on celebrating the season and participating in Advent that season. And then that was the first year I was homeschooling, so my son would have been like in preschool, and my daughter like tagged along kind of. He was like pre-K. And so I remember we did the Peaceful Press. I'll definitely include them in the show notes. I'm a huge affiliate for the Peaceful Press. That's who I use for my homeschool curriculum. They have an Advent guide. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous. It is very encouraging biblically, but it's also still educational, and I love it. We do it every year because we still have things that we can gain out of it, and I'll just kind of add on to it to fit their age levels. But that's what we did in the Bahamas. So we woke up, and we had breakfast, and we had school, and we went to the beach, and we had nap time, and we had playtime, we had dinner. I think we watched the TV approximately twice. Other than that, we didn't turn it on. I needed to get it together. Other than that, we didn't have it on. We just enjoyed what was outside and around us. And it was just a great time of togetherness for our family. It was beautiful. I'm still so thankful we got to do that. Our kids ask us all the time, when are we going back? I miss my friends. When are we going back? I miss my friends. And we're hoping that next year for Christmas, we can go back to Spanish Wells because that was just so fun. They have Junkanoo. That's like their festival in the Bahamas. So they're also, remember, they're a British Commonwealth. They're owned by Britain still. So there's a lot of European influence. So they have I think they have Boxing Day. But they have this thing called Junkanoo, and it's like a week-long festival, and literally everything on the island shut down for like almost a week. The grocery store, the restaurants, everything. They closed down. The kids are out of school. People are not working for like almost a week. And they have this festival in the middle of town with the community, and they have like these old-fashioned games going on, like egg spoon race and like a bike race and a bag sack race, and the community would fundraise money. So any kid who participated would get $1 if they participated in the game. And if they won, they got $2. They got second place or third place, they get 3, 5, $2. And every kid would get money. So it was just really sweet, and it was just a very intentional time as a community, and that was so cool. So we did that too. On New Year's, they had like a party down by the beach, and they were supposed to have fireworks on the water, but the fireworks didn't work. But we still did that, and like that's where everybody in the community was on New Year's Eve. Yeah, and we went to church for Christmas, and they have this big Christmas play that the kids put on every year. And we met some of the kids at the church one day, and they invited us to come see their Christmas play. So we went to the Christmas play, and it was so cute. And we kept going to church. We went to church on New Year's, and we got to meet the pastor and his wife and talk to them. And so, I mean, it was just like we went and we immersed ourselves in the community, and also just got to feel immersed as a family for the first time. And after a season of working our tails off to get out of debt, after a season of starting up a business, I mean, it was just so much. And so it was our first time to really decompress, and it was so fun. So that was 2022, 2023. We went to Connecticut per usual. And I know there was another big trip we took, and I can't think of what it was. I don't remember what we did in 2023, honestly. For whatever reason, that year is just off into... I don't know what we did. I'd have to look at my Instagram. Sorry, guys. But I know this year, 2024, the last year of my 20s, was a really special year for traveling. We got to go to Hawaii in February for said best friends who we were supposed to go to the Bahamas with. They had a vow renewal in Hawaii, and they asked us to be a bridesmaid and a groomsman, and that was so beautiful. So we went to Molokai. We had a night in Honolulu, so we got to see Honolulu, Hawaii. We had a night in Maui, so we got to see Maui, but our friends live on Molokai, so we spent what was supposed to be a week in Molokai for the wedding and for a little bit of traveling after, but we couldn't get off of Molokai. And so I have that story on my Instagram, how I got stranded in Hawaii for an extra week because we flew standby. So, don't fly standby, at least from Hawaii, because you might never get back. And Molokai only has one way to get off the island, which is with a charter airplane flight. And it's kind of like it might be going and it might not be going. You never know. And so we didn't go. And we were stuck on Molokai for another week. We ended up taking a fishing boat off of Molokai to Maui, which was 30 minutes away, and I have video of that on my Instagram. It's insane, and that was so crazy. But we got there, and it was just such a testimony. It was a huge part of my faith walk, and just a lot of different things happened on that trip that were just very influential, and it was just amazing. I mean, Hawaii is amazing. I never thought we'd get to go, and the Lord was so kind to help us save up the money to take that trip, and support our friends and be there for something that was just an incredibly pivotal moment in their lives. And so then, we went to Hawaii, ended up going for 16 days. It was supposed to be a 7-day trip. Again, no credit cards, guys. It's all in pocket. So every decision we made to try and get off the island was with that in mind, where we've got $1,200 left. We got $1,000 left. We got $800 left. We had to be really, 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 really strategic because we had a budget. And we couldn't just buy $3,000 tickets to get home. Wasn't an option. And so that was that year. And then in May, we finally went on our cruise to Cozumel, Mexico, that we were supposed to go on in 2019, that I had us cancel when we first started getting out of debt. We were supposed to actually go on the cruise again in 2020 after we got out of debt, but then COVID hit, and so they ended up just canceling the cruise, and we got some money back and we got a credit back. And that's what we used to finally take our cruise. We went to Cozumel, Mexico with no kids for a 5-day cruise, 4 nights, 5 days. And that was the first time we had traveled without our kids. I think each baby we've taken a baby moon just to a town over or to Dallas. We've taken a couple weekend trips here and there, just the two of us. Or if we had a newborn, we had our baby with us. But we had not had solo time since our honeymoon in Costa Rica. And so that was an amazing time to reconnect. And Cozumel was super cool. The cruise was super cool. That I was very grateful for that. We just came back from Connecticut and Cape Cod last week, and that was an amazing trip. It was a beautiful trip. I always feel so refreshed going home. It's always a little hard to come home, but it's always such a great time visiting the East Coast. And yeah, I don't think this summer we went anywhere. I did forget to mention the past couple years, my husband's family has adopted the tradition of going to Pine Cove summer camp with the family as a gift. And so we do go to Pine Cove in the summers, which is like a week-long Christian camp. That's been a really interesting experience. I won't say it's my favorite because, one, your girl doesn't camp. Two, your girl does not do heat. And it's a lot of energy. It is a lot of energy. It's so hard to explain. It's very loud. It's very rambunctious, and it's very youthful and vibrant. And it's just like, I need some quiet. I literally bring earplugs because it's so loud. And then I'm trying to hide from the sun for a week. And so we do that, and I'm learning how to love it, guys. I'm really, really trying. I'm really trying to do something for my kids that I don't enjoy because it's just not my jam. But we're getting there. And so we get to do that. I recognize is a huge blessing that a lot of families would do anything to do. And so that's really been a blessing for my in-laws and my kids for sure. And then this year, we just went to Connecticut, and then we're capping off. This is like the busiest travel year we've probably had ever. Next month, my husband's family is going to Broken Bow for a couple nights for family vacation. So that's where we've gone the past couple years, was Broken Bow, Oklahoma. Stayed in a big cabin with my husband's family. That's been really sweet, just a time to get together and reconnect. So we're doing that next month. And then in December, we're taking another cruise, which is this is the biggest blessing. We didn't plan it, so we're taking another cruise. We're going to a similar area, Cozumel, I think Honduras, and maybe Belize. I really don't know, but there's a reason, and the reason is that this is my husband's belated college graduation trip. So his parents had started a little tradition that when their kids got their bachelor's or their master's, when they finished their higher education, they would take them on a trip so they could have one-on-one time with their kids. Again, there's 7 of them. And they all spread out ages. Not everybody went to college. So my husband, he had started his master's degree in 2019, and they were waiting for him to finish before he went on his trip, but then he didn't finish, and then COVID, and then. And so his youngest sibling is graduating from college. My husband is the 3rd oldest, so the number 7 is graduating from college this year, and she's going on a trip, and she was cute. She was sweet to advocate for her older brother. And was like, you never took him on a trip. And so I was like, well, do you want your trip, honey? Ask your parents. And so he asked, and so they were so generous to take our family along with his little sister on this cruise. I think it's like a 7-day cruise or something like that, right before Christmas. And so we're going on another cruise. This time it's with our kids, so it will be a little bit of a different experience. But I think regardless, it'll be great. And I'll get to see more parts of Latin America and Mexico that I haven't got to see, but I've always wanted to see. And it should be very relaxing. And so that was a really sweet, sweet surprise to cap off the year. So that has been traveling in my 20s. It's so funny because from the beginning to the end, you guys can see this growth and transition where I've heard a lot of people say, well, your 30s is that's when you really get to reap your harvest and enjoy what you've been working for in your 20s. And I think a lot of people truthfully have that so backwards, where they want everything in their youth immediately and just kind of feel like it's owed to them, even if they can't afford it. And so we spent our 20s working to get out of debt, getting out of student loans, saving up enough to buy a house. Again, our house is 900 square feet. We went into this endeavor, I'll be just very frank, we spent underneath $250,000 for our house and our property. And we did a lot of it ourselves. Our company did a lot of it. And yes, it's a custom home, but it's very small. Most everything in my house is thrifted. We live a very, very frugal lifestyle. And the whole concept of us building this house being so small was that we loved to travel. So when we were building this house, before we bought a house, we were renting. I talked about that before, and like the different houses that we lived in throughout our marriage, so we could get out of debt and afford life. But after that Bahamas trip, the Lord, in that trip to Galveston, like the Lord really impressed on my husband that He did not want us to build the original house we were planning to build, which was going to be about 3,000 square feet, and it's just gorgeous, amazing house. And we are so glad that we didn't, even though it's been really difficult living in such a small space with so many kids way out in the country. But like, we just really believe that the Lord has His hand in this, and that like things are going to be changing, and that we will get to use this to glorify God. And that's still working itself out. But after we did that trip to the Bahamas, we were really like, we could have this giant house and be locked in with this giant mortgage and not have a lot of extra money to put towards traveling, or we can live small and get to do these really cool trips, like once a year. And so we chose living small. And it's been really challenging, don't get me wrong. But the experiences that we've got to have are just like, they're once in a lifetime. They've really been once in a lifetime chances. And so that has been a huge way that we've been able to travel. And again, if you have listened to this episode from beginning to end, you will see the theme is patience. We have had to wait. We have had to wait years to do things that we really enjoyed because the money was not there and we were not going into debt to do something we couldn't afford. So again, we never let having kids stop us. We never let our debt freedom thing stop us when we needed like quality time to just get away from the hustle and grind, because for a couple years there, we were working our tails off to get out of debt. I mean, we were working so hard. And so we did those little weekend trips. We had some older friends later in our marriage when we had like our anniversary. Usually we went to a town 30 minutes away from where we live, and our friends that my husband grew up with, they're adults. They're friends with his parents, I should say. They have a little Airbnb on a lake, and so they would, give us a reduced rate to come out for the weekend, because they knew that we're young and we're trying to get out of debt. We just want some alone time for our anniversary. And so we would just go to these little podunk towns for the weekend and stay in this little Airbnb and just, go get coffee and go to a cafe and go to lunch. And that's how we decompressed. It has not been extravagant, but the whole point is not extravagance. And so I think that's really important when you are traveling, and just the heart of traveling. It's not always about flaunting and flexing and having the most outstanding experience, especially if you can't afford it. The whole point is doing something you love, I hope, with people that you love, I hope. And that's what my traveling experience in my 20s ultimately was. I got to see incredibly beautiful places that I've come to love and appreciate, even though I've never thought I would like Arkansas or never thought I would enjoy a weekend in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. That just sounds like such a random thing, but the whole reason we were there was to be with family or to have a break or to decompress, and it fulfilled its purpose. And so the past couple of years, we have gotten to do some amazing once-in-a-lifetime trips. Again, they've been on a budget. They have not been paid with credit cards. They have not been paid with points. They've been paid with our hard working hours and our sacrifices, which makes traveling all the more sweeter and all the more enjoyable. And then when you come home, you don't have a bill waiting for you. You just have home waiting for you. And so that actually makes me really look forward to my 30s in so many ways, because I feel like now we are starting to have older kids where it is a little easier to travel with them, and they are more capable of having different experiences. So maybe someday we'll finally go to Disney World. I want to go more than anything. Honestly, I think my oldest son would freak out if we went to Disney, and I would be freaking out with him. Honestly, my daughter probably would too, because she loves princesses. So the three of us would be like, oh my gosh! And the other three would probably be like, this is great. I don't really care. Maybe not, because my littlest is obsessed with Mickey Mouse. He loves Mickey Mouse. He asks us to sing the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse song as his bedtime song. And we don't do a lot of screen time, but he's been potty training, and that's his reward, is if he gets so many poopies in the potty, he gets to watch Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. and he talks about Mickey Mouse all day long. He loves Mickey. Anyway, so we know like that's something we really want to do, but we're going to be strategic about it. We're going to plan it accordingly. We're not going to use debt. We're going to find hacks and deals galore. I know there's tons of pages on Instagram and podcasts and blogs made for that. And we're going to utilize them because we travel smart. Still, we will always travel smart. We will always travel frugally. We're really hoping again that like next year we can go back to the Bahamas for Christmas. And I really want to go back to Europe next year after we have our baby. So bad. I want to go so bad. I really want to go to London and Scotland and do some of like the north, not for eat soggy waffle, northwest European thing. Eventually I want to do the Mediterranean again, but truthfully, I want to do that with just my husband. I want to take him to Italy and Nice and Monaco and redo that Barcelona, that Milan to Barcelona trip that I did in college with him. And because it's just the most romantic thing in the world, honestly. So we have so many big places we want to see. One of our really close friends, he is a missionary in Thailand and Bangladesh. And we've been praying that the Lord would bless us to go visit him and encourage him and see the ministry that we've been supporting in Thailand the past couple years and what we've been praying for in Thailand, and meeting the people that he's gotten to minister to and walk with in Thailand. And we also have really close friends that are missionaries in Istanbul in Turkey. It has also been a prayer that the Lord would provide so that we can go out to Turkey and go encourage them and see all the work that they've gotten to do for the name of the Lord in Turkey. And so yeah, I've never been on a mission trip. I should just mention that in my 20s, I actually went to go to Guatemala to work on an orphanage, and I could not raise the money for it, so I didn't get to go. And I've never been on a mission trip since. But also my philosophy is that wherever I go, I should be missioning wherever I go. I should be, if not openly sharing the gospel, living in a way that portrays the gospel, that introduces people to Christ, where they notice I'm not this cranky, entitled traveler. And if I am, and I get snappy and I get overwhelmed, then I apologize, because that has happened when I travel. And some people are not nice at the airport and they get on my bad side, but I have to rein it in and I have to remember whose I am, that I'm a reflection of my Lord wherever I go. And that is a mission right there. So hallelujah for that. You don't have to go on a mission trip to Africa to mission. You can do it just by going to Walmart down the street or going to Weatherford, Oklahoma, where there's nobody there, but somebody who can appreciate the light that we carry through the Holy Spirit just by our presence. So that has been my traveling experiences in my 20s. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Email me. It's info@wildlyrootedministry.org. I'm always active on my Instagram. I'm active on Threads. I have my YouTube up and going, so this will be up on YouTube. So leave a comment. Have a question, have something you want to share, or like something that really spoke to you. Like, I would love to hear. I would love to know what you think. So thank you guys for listening. And this is going to be a 2-part episode because it ended up being really long. But so thanks for bearing through it with me. That was so fun to reminisce on. And so praise God for my 20s. I feel like even when it just comes to something as simple as the love of traveling, the Lord has really ministered to my heart through it and with it. And I cannot wait to see where I might get to go in my 30s. So until next week, that's Coffee with Kay. Bye.
By gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me. There's nothing can hold me. By gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. By gray sky, hello.